There are cars that are faster, cars that are louder, cars that cost even more. Today, a Bugatti can reach speeds that would have been unimaginable only a generation ago. Ferrari continues to build some of the world's most exhilarating performance machines. Lamborghini turns every journey into a spectacle, while Mercedes-Maybach and Bentley offer levels of technology and comfort that rival the finest hotels. Yet when presidents arrive at state ceremonies, when kings travel between royal palaces, when billionaires quietly pull up to a private terminal, or when some of the world's wealthiest families decide to buy a car that represents everything they've achieved, one name appears again and again: Rolls-Royce. It's a company that has survived world wars, economic depressions, changing governments, oil crises, financial collapse, and the complete transformation of the automotive industry. It has watched legendary manufacturers disappear. It has watched competitors rise and fall. It has seen entire technologies become obsolete. And yet, somehow, more than a century after it was founded, Rolls-Royce remains the benchmark against which every luxury car is measured. But here's the strange part. Objectively speaking, Rolls-Royce doesn't build the fastest cars. It doesn't build the most technologically advanced cars. Its vehicles aren't designed to dominate racetracks. They're rarely the most expensive automobiles money can buy. So why has Rolls-Royce remained at the very top of the luxury world for over 120 years? The answer has surprisingly little to do with horsepower, or leather seats, or handcrafted wood. Instead, it has everything to do with psychology, because Rolls-Royce doesn't really sell cars. It sells reassurance, status, craftsmanship, silence, exclusivity, and perhaps the most valuable luxury of all: time. Every Rolls-Royce is built around an idea that feels almost radical in today's world. Nothing should rush you. The doors close with almost no sound. The suspension makes rough roads seem to disappear. The cabin is so quiet that engineers reportedly had to add small amounts of sound insulation less aggressively in some models because complete silence felt unnatural to passengers. Even the famous Spirit of Ecstasy doesn't scream for attention. It simply stands there, confident, elegant, timeless. That philosophy has attracted everyone from British royalty and Middle Eastern monarchs to Hollywood legends, technology billionaires, entrepreneurs, and heads of state. Yet despite its reputation, Rolls-Royce has never tried to appeal to everyone. In fact, the company has spent more than a century doing the exact opposite. Because true luxury isn't built by becoming popular. It's built by remaining desirable. So how did a small British engineering company become one of the most recognizable symbols of success ever created? Why do the richest people on Earth continue choosing Rolls-Royce, even when faster, cheaper, and more advanced alternatives exist? And in an era of electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, and rapidly changing consumer tastes, can a company built on tradition continue defining the future of luxury? To answer those questions, we have to go back to the beginning, to two very different men, one who loved automobiles, and another who simply refused to build anything less than perfect. Chapter 1. The Man Who Wanted Perfection. Every legendary company begins with an idea. Rolls-Royce began with an obsession. Long before it became the preferred automobile of kings, presidents, and billionaires, Rolls-Royce was simply the meeting of two men whose personalities could not have been more different. One was a charismatic aristocrat who loved speed, adventure, and the excitement of the newly invented automobile. The other was a quiet engineer who believed perfection wasn't a goal. It was a responsibility. Together, they would create one of the most prestigious brands the world has ever known. Charles Stuart Rolls was born into wealth. The son of Lord and Lady Langaddock, Rolls grew up surrounded by privilege in Victorian Britain. Educated at Eton and later Cambridge University, he developed an early fascination with engineering and mechanics. While many members of Britain's upper class viewed automobiles as noisy, unreliable novelties, Rolls saw something much greater. He believed the automobile would transform the world. By the late 1890s, he had become one of Britain's first car dealers, importing French vehicles and selling them to wealthy customers eager to embrace this revolutionary technology. Yet despite his enthusiasm, Rolls had one constant frustration. The cars simply weren't good enough. Engines failed. Parts broke unexpectedly. Journeys that should have taken an hour often lasted an entire day because of mechanical problems. Early automobiles demanded almost as much patience as they did skill. Across England, another man was reaching exactly the same conclusion. Frederick Henry Royce couldn't have come from a more different background. Unlike Rolls, Royce wasn't born into privilege. His father died when he was still a child, forcing him to leave school at a young age and work to support his family. He sold newspapers, delivered telegrams, and eventually found work as an apprentice engineer. Every opportunity he earned came through relentless effort rather than inherited wealth. Perhaps because nothing had ever come easily, Royce developed standards that bordered on impossible. If a machine made unnecessary noise, he fixed it. If a component failed before it should, he redesigned it. If another manufacturer claimed something couldn't be improved, Royce considered that a personal challenge. By the early 1900s, he had established a successful engineering company producing electrical equipment. But automobiles fascinated him. After purchasing a French-made Decauville, he became deeply disappointed by its quality. Instead of accepting its flaws, he decided to build something better. The result was a small two-cylinder car that immediately attracted attention throughout Britain's engineering community. Not because it was flashy, because it worked beautifully. In 1904, a mutual friend arranged a meeting between Charles Rolls and Henry Royce at Manchester's Midland Hotel. Automotive historians often describe it as one of the most important business meetings in history. Rolls examined Royce's car carefully before taking it for a drive. When he returned, he made a decision almost immediately. He would stop selling French automobiles. From that moment forward, he wanted to sell only cars built by Henry Royce. The partnership combined two extraordinary strengths. Rolls understood customers, branding, and the growing luxury market. Royce understood engineering with a level of precision that few people could match. It proved to be the perfect combination. 2 years later, in 1906, Rolls-Royce Limited was officially established. From the very beginning, Henry Royce imposed one rule that would define the company's future. Take the best that exists and make it better. When it does not exist, design it. It wasn't a marketing slogan. It was an engineering philosophy. Royce refused to compromise, even when perfection cost more, took longer, or required completely redesigning components that most customers would never even notice. That relentless pursuit of excellence quickly separated Rolls-Royce from every other automobile manufacturer of its time. While competitors raced to produce more cars, Royce focused on producing better ones. He wasn't interested in building the fastest automobile. He wanted to build the finest. Within only a few years, the world would discover exactly what that meant. And one remarkable car would establish Rolls-Royce as the greatest luxury automobile manufacturer on Earth. Chapter 2: The Car That Changed Everything. When Rolls-Royce was founded in 1906, the automobile industry was still in its infancy. Cars were noisy, unreliable, uncomfortable. Mechanical breakdowns were so common that long-distance travel was considered an adventure rather than a convenience. Wealthy buyers often employed chauffeurs not simply because driving was prestigious, but because operating an early automobile required genuine mechanical knowledge. Every journey carried the possibility of a puncture, an overheated engine, or a failed transmission. For Henry Royce, this wasn't acceptable. He believed the automobile shouldn't be a machine people tolerated. It should be a machine they trusted. Only 1 year after the company was founded, Rolls-Royce introduced the car that would define its future forever, the 40/50 horsepower. Later, it became known by a far more famous name, the Silver Ghost. At first glance, it didn't appear revolutionary. It wasn't the fastest car on the road, nor the most aggressively styled. But beneath its elegant bodywork lay something almost unheard of in the early 20th century: Reliability. Every component had been engineered with obsessive precision. Royce personally inspected countless parts, demanding tolerances that many manufacturers considered excessive. Engines were balanced more carefully. Gearboxes operated more smoothly. Every vibration, rattle, and unnecessary noise became an engineering problem waiting to be solved. Then Rolls-Royce did something brilliant. Instead of telling people the Silver Ghost was reliable, they decided to prove it. In 1907, one Silver Ghost completed a 15,000-mile reliability trial, an astonishing achievement at a time when many cars struggled to complete a few hundred miles without serious mechanical failure. The journey attracted international attention, demonstrating that Rolls-Royce had built something entirely different from its competitors. Newspapers praised the car. Customers began placing orders, and almost overnight, Rolls-Royce earned a reputation that no advertising campaign could have bought. Soon afterward, the prestigious British publication Autocar described the Silver Ghost as the best car in the world. The phrase spread rapidly. More importantly, people believed it. That reputation reached far beyond Britain. Royal families across Europe began purchasing Rolls-Royces. Maharajas in India ordered fleets of custom-built models. Wealthy industrialists in America viewed ownership as a statement that they had reached the highest level of success. Diplomats, aristocrats, and heads of state increasingly arrived at official events in cars carrying the famous Rolls-Royce badge. The company wasn't simply selling transportation anymore. It was selling confidence. Then came another symbol that would become almost as famous as the cars themselves. In 1911, Rolls-Royce introduced the Spirit of Ecstasy. The elegant silver figure standing proudly above every Rolls-Royce radiator wasn't created merely as decoration. It was designed by sculptor Charles Sykes and inspired by Eleanor Thornton, the secretary, and widely believed to be the secret love, of motoring pioneer Lord John Montagu. Known internally as Emily, the sculpture represented grace, speed, elegance, and quiet confidence. Unlike many automotive ornaments of the era, it wasn't aggressive or flamboyant. It leaned gently forward, as though carried effortlessly by the wind. More than a century later, it remains one of the most recognizable symbols in the automotive world. Around the same time, Rolls-Royce adopted another philosophy that still defines the company today: never chase volume. While manufacturers such as Ford revolutionized mass production through assembly lines, Rolls-Royce deliberately moved in the opposite direction. The company wasn't interested in producing thousands of identical cars as quickly as possible. It wanted every automobile to feel exceptional. That decision changed everything. Scarcity created prestige, prestige created demand, and demand allowed Rolls-Royce to maintain standards that mass-market manufacturers simply couldn't afford. Long before luxury branding became a science, Rolls-Royce had already discovered one of its most important rules: if everyone can own it, it isn't truly luxurious. By the outbreak of the First World War, Rolls-Royce had become more than an automobile manufacturer. It had become a symbol of excellence. But the company's greatest challenges were still ahead, because the wars that would reshape the 20th century would also reshape Rolls-Royce itself in ways nobody could have imagined. Chapter 3. Surviving Disaster. Chapter 3. Why Rich People Still Buy Rolls-Royce. When BMW officially took control of Rolls-Royce motor cars in 2003, many people expected the company to change. Some believed it would become more modern. Others feared it would become more commercial. After all, the automotive industry was changing faster than ever before. Luxury brands were chasing younger buyers. Technology was advancing at an extraordinary pace. SUVs were beginning to dominate the market, while digital features increasingly replaced traditional craftsmanship. Surely Rolls-Royce would have to adapt. It did, but not in the way most people expected. Instead of trying to compete with Mercedes-Benz on technology, Ferrari on performance, or Bentley on price, Rolls-Royce asked a completely different question: what does luxury actually mean? The answer would redefine the company for the 21st century, because Rolls-Royce eventually realized something that many luxury brands still struggle to understand. The wealthiest customers aren't looking for the best specifications. They're looking for the best feeling. Think about it. If someone has accumulated a net worth of hundreds of millions, or even billions of dollars, does another 50 horsepower really matter? Does accelerating from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds instead of 4 fundamentally improve their life? Probably not. At that level of wealth, performance becomes expected. Luxury becomes emotional. This is where Rolls-Royce separates itself from almost every other car manufacturer. The company doesn't advertise horsepower. It doesn't boast about lap times. It doesn't compare performance figures with competitors. Instead, it talks about silence, craftsmanship, effortlessness, presence. Even the people who drive Rolls-Royces are often different from buyers of other luxury cars. Ferrari customers frequently enjoy driving. Lamborghini owners often enjoy attention. McLaren buyers admire engineering. Rolls-Royce customers often prefer arriving. For decades, many Rolls-Royce owners didn't even sit behind the steering wheel. They sat in the back. The car wasn't designed to make driving exciting. It was designed to make travel effortless. That philosophy continues today. Engineers at Rolls-Royce famously describe the ride quality as the magic carpet ride. The goal isn't to let you feel the road. The goal is to make the road disappear. Sophisticated air suspension systems constantly adjust to changing road surfaces, while cameras scan the pavement ahead, preparing the suspension before the wheels even encounter bumps. Massive amounts of sound insulation isolate passengers from wind, traffic, and engine noise, creating one of the quietest cabins in the automotive world. Ironically, when engineers developed the latest Phantom, the cabin became so quiet that test drivers found it slightly unsettling. There was almost no sound at all. To solve the problem, Rolls-Royce actually allowed tiny amounts of natural cabin noise back into the interior. Not because they couldn't eliminate it, but because complete silence felt unnatural. It's the kind of engineering challenge only Rolls-Royce would consider. Then there's the psychology. Luxury researchers often distinguish between conspicuous wealth and quiet wealth. Conspicuous wealth is designed to be noticed. Bright colors, aggressive styling, large logos, attention. Quiet wealth works differently. It doesn't ask for recognition, it assumes it. A Rolls-Royce doesn't need dramatic wings, enormous spoilers, or aggressive exhaust notes. Its presence alone is enough. People recognize it instantly. Not because it's loud, but because it has become a symbol, and symbols carry extraordinary power. A Rolex tells time, a Patek Philippe tells a story. A Rolls-Royce transports people. But what it really communicates is something much deeper: achievement, confidence, permanence. That's why so many of the world's wealthiest individuals continue buying them. Not because they need another car, but because very few objects still represent success in a way that feels timeless. Perhaps that's Rolls-Royce's greatest achievement. It hasn't simply remained relevant for more than a century. It has remained meaningful. And in the luxury business, those are two very different things. That meaning reaches its highest expression not on the production line, but inside a factory where almost every car is built unlike any other on Earth. Chapter 4. The $500,000 car that's never really finished. Most car factories are built around one goal: efficiency. Robots weld body panels together in seconds. Conveyor belts move continuously. Thousands of identical vehicles leave the production line every week, each one virtually indistinguishable from the next. In modern manufacturing, consistency is everything. Rolls-Royce deliberately rejects that philosophy. Drive to the company's headquarters in Goodwood, England, and you'll find something that feels less like a factory and more like an artisan workshop. The building is flooded with natural light, surrounded by carefully landscaped gardens, and remarkably quiet. There are robots, of course, but they exist to assist craftspeople, not replace them. Every Rolls-Royce begins with engineering, but it becomes luxury through human hands. A single Phantom or Ghost can take months to complete. Hundreds of skilled craftspeople work on every vehicle. Unlike mass-produced automobiles, where speed is measured in seconds, Rolls-Royce measures success in perfection. If something isn't flawless, it doesn't leave the factory. That philosophy extends to almost every material inside the car. Take the wood veneers, for example. Rather than using synthetic finishes or printed patterns, Rolls-Royce sources genuine hardwoods from around the world. Walnut, open-pore oak, ebony, blackwood, and other rare species are carefully selected before being book-matched, a process where consecutive slices of timber are mirrored so the grain flows perfectly across the dashboard and doors. Craftsmen spend days ensuring each pattern aligns with almost mathematical precision. Leather receives the same attention. Rolls-Royce purchases hides from cattle raised in regions where insects and barbed wire fencing are less likely to leave scars. Even the smallest imperfections can disqualify a hide. Once selected, skilled artisans hand cut and stitch every interior, using techniques that have changed very little over the decades. Then comes paint. For most manufacturers, choosing a color means selecting from a list of available options. For Rolls-Royce, it's only the beginning. Customers can choose from tens of thousands of existing colors, or create an entirely new one. Some owners have matched the shade of a favorite yacht. Others have recreated the color of a childhood home, a rare gemstone, a private jet, or even a beloved pet's eyes. If the color can be reproduced, Rolls-Royce will attempt to make it happen. The result is that many Rolls-Royces wear paint that exists on no other car in the world, but perhaps the company's most famous feature is hidden above your head. The Starlight headliner. Introduced in the early 2000s, it has become one of Rolls-Royce's defining signatures. Thousands of tiny fiber optic lights are individually woven into the leather roof lining by hand, creating the illusion of a perfectly clear night sky. Some owners request the stars arranged exactly as they appeared on the night they were married. Others choose the constellation visible on the day their children were born. Some commission shooting stars that gently glide across the ceiling every few seconds. No two are exactly alike, and that's precisely the point. Personalization has become the company's greatest luxury. Today, Rolls-Royce's bespoke division fulfills requests that would sound almost impossible anywhere else in the automotive industry. One client requested embroidery using thread infused with real gold. Another asked for picnic compartments specifically designed to fit vintage champagne bottles. Some have commissioned dashboards featuring hand-painted artwork inspired by mountain ranges, private islands, or family estates. Then there are the cars that almost redefine what an automobile can be. In 2017, Rolls-Royce unveiled the Sweptail, a one-off commission believed to have cost around $13 million at the time, making it one of the most expensive new cars ever created. It was followed by the breathtaking Boat Tail, inspired by luxury yachts from the 1920s and complete with a rear hosting suite featuring parasols, handcrafted dining equipment, and refrigerated compartments for champagne. Then came the Drop Tail, another ultra-exclusive coach-built masterpiece, produced in extremely limited numbers for clients whose identities remain largely private. These aren't production cars. They're automotive works of art. For many buyers, the price is almost irrelevant because what they're purchasing isn't transportation, it's exclusivity, knowing that nobody else in the world owns a car quite like theirs. Perhaps that's why Rolls-Royce rarely talks about luxury in terms of cost. Money can buy expensive things, but it can't easily buy uniqueness. And in a world where almost everything can be copied, mass-produced, or delivered overnight, true exclusivity has become one of the rarest luxuries of all, which raises an interesting question. If Rolls-Royce builds some of the world's most luxurious cars, why do people continue comparing it to Bentley, Mercedes-Maybach, Ferrari, or even Bugatti? The truth is, Rolls-Royce has never really been competing with them at all. Chapter 5. Rolls-Royce has no competitors. Ask someone to name Rolls-Royce's biggest competitor, and you'll probably hear the same answers. Bentley, Mercedes-Maybach, Ferrari, Lamborghini, perhaps even Bugatti. On paper, the comparison seems logical. They're all expensive, they're all luxurious, and they're all purchased by wealthy individuals. But Rolls-Royce sees the world very differently. Inside the company, there is a belief that has remained remarkably consistent for decades. Rolls-Royce doesn't compete with other car manufacturers. It competes with expectations. That may sound like clever marketing, but there's a deeper truth behind it. Think about what each luxury brand actually sells. Ferrari sells excitement. Everything about the car encourages the driver to feel connected to the road. The engine screams. The steering is razor sharp. Every journey feels theatrical. Ferrari wants you to chase the next corner. Lamborghini sells drama. Its sharp angles, aggressive styling, and unmistakable exhaust note are designed to command attention. It's a car that announces its arrival long before it reaches its destination. Mercedes-Maybach focuses on technology. Its interiors are packed with digital displays, intelligent driver assistance systems, advanced entertainment, and cutting-edge innovation. It represents the future of luxury through engineering. Bentley occupies perhaps the closest position to Rolls-Royce. Both are British luxury brands with long histories, handcrafted interiors, and royal connections. Yet even Bentley positions itself differently. The company describes many of its models as the luxury performance sedan. Bentleys are built for owners who enjoy driving themselves. Their engines are more responsive, their steering more engaging, and their personalities noticeably sportier. Rolls-Royce deliberately avoids all of that. Performance exists, but it is never the headline. Instead, Rolls-Royce asks a completely different question. How do you make a passenger forget they're inside a moving vehicle? That single objective influences every engineering decision. The suspension doesn't communicate every bump in the road. It erases them. The steering isn't designed to feel aggressive. It's designed to feel effortless. The V12 engine delivers enormous power, yet rarely announces itself. Acceleration happens with almost eerie smoothness, as though the car is being gently pulled forward rather than pushed by an engine. Even the famous rear-hinged coach doors reveal the company's priorities. They don't exist simply because they look elegant. They make entering and exiting the vehicle easier, particularly for passengers wearing formal clothing, evening gowns. It's a small detail that reflects Rolls-Royce's philosophy perfectly. Luxury should remove effort, not create spectacle. This is why many Rolls-Royce owners also own Ferraris, Lamborghinis, or Porsches. Each serves a different purpose. A Ferrari might be driven on a sunny weekend through the Italian countryside. A Lamborghini may appear at exclusive automotive events. A Porsche might handle the daily commute. But when attending a royal reception, welcoming important business partners, arriving at a state ceremony, or simply wanting to travel in complete comfort, many still choose the Rolls-Royce. Because status isn't always about attracting attention. Sometimes it's about confidence. There's another reason Rolls-Royce remains so difficult to challenge. The company refuses to chase trends. Throughout the automotive industry, manufacturers constantly compete to introduce the newest technology, the largest touchscreens, the most powerful engines, or the quickest acceleration times. Every few years, another record is broken. Rolls-Royce rarely enters that race. Instead, it asks a different question. Will this still feel luxurious 20 years from now? That philosophy explains why Rolls-Royce interiors age so gracefully. Rather than filling cabins with technology that may feel outdated within a few years, designers emphasize timeless materials, real wood, polished metal, hand-stitched leather, and elegant proportions. Digital technology is present, but it remains discreet. The focus is always on craftsmanship, rather than novelty. Perhaps that's why Rolls-Royce has outlived so many of its competitors. Luxury trends change, fashion changes, technology changes, but timeless craftsmanship rarely goes out of style. And after more than 120 years, Rolls-Royce continues proving that true luxury isn't about having the newest car. It's about creating one that people will still admire decades after it leaves the factory. Yet even Rolls-Royce cannot ignore the biggest transformation in automotive history. The age of electric vehicles has arrived, and for a company built on tradition, the future has never presented a greater challenge or a greater opportunity. Chapter 6. The Future of Luxury. For more than a century, Rolls-Royce built its reputation around one idea: perfection never goes out of style. But in the 21st century, the automotive industry is changing faster than at any point since the invention of the automobile itself. Governments are banning new gasoline-powered vehicles. Electric cars are replacing internal combustion engines. Artificial intelligence is becoming part of everyday driving. Autonomous vehicles are no longer science fiction. Even the definition of luxury is beginning to change. For many manufacturers, these changes represent an enormous challenge. For Rolls-Royce, they represent an opportunity. At first, the idea seemed almost impossible. How could a company famous for its whisper-quiet V12 engines build an electric car without losing its identity? The answer, surprisingly, was simple. Rolls-Royce had never been selling engines. It had been selling silence. For decades, engineers spent extraordinary amounts of time reducing vibration, eliminating engine noise, and making every journey feel smoother than the last. Customers weren't buying a Rolls-Royce because they loved hearing the engine roar. Quite the opposite. They loved the fact that they could barely hear it at all. Electric power simply took that philosophy one step further. In 2023, Rolls-Royce introduced the Spectre, the company's first fully electric production car. Many expected it to mark the end of an era. Instead, it felt like the beginning of a new one. The absence of engine noise made the famous magic carpet ride even more convincing. Instant electric torque delivered effortless acceleration without disturbing the calm inside the cabin. The driving experience became smoother, quieter, and even more refined than many thought possible. For Rolls-Royce, electrification wasn't abandoning tradition. It was fulfilling it. Chief Executive Torsten Müller-Oetvers famously remarked that electric propulsion perfectly matched the character Henry Royce had always pursued. Quiet, effortless, refined. The transition also reflected another major shift happening inside the luxury market. The average Rolls-Royce customer was becoming younger. For decades, the brand had been associated with elderly aristocrats, royal families, and established industrialists. Rolls-Royce has adapted remarkably well. Its bespoke division now contributes more to the company's business than ever before, with clients commissioning increasingly personal vehicles inspired by architecture, fine art, family history, private yachts, and even astronomy. Every commission becomes a collaborative project rather than a standard purchase. The company has also expanded into markets that barely existed for luxury automobiles a generation ago. The Middle East remains one of Rolls-Royce's strongest regions, where custom commissions often reflect local culture and extraordinary levels of personalization. China has become another critical market, driven by a rapidly growing population of ultra-high net worth individuals. Meanwhile, entrepreneurs across India, Southeast Asia, and the United States continue redefining who a traditional Rolls-Royce customer looks like. Perhaps the clearest example of the company's willingness to evolve came in 2018. The Cullinan. For decades, Rolls-Royce insisted it would never build an SUV. Sport utility vehicles were considered incompatible with the company's heritage. Then customer demand became impossible to ignore. Instead of resisting change forever, Rolls-Royce asked a familiar question. If we were going to build an SUV, how would Rolls-Royce do it? The answer wasn't a sports SUV designed to dominate racetracks. It became the most luxurious SUV in the world. The Cullinan immediately became one of the company's best-selling models, attracting a younger generation of buyers while introducing thousands of new customers to the brand. Critics who initially questioned the decision were quickly silenced by extraordinary demand. It proved something important. Tradition doesn't survive by refusing to change. It survives by changing carefully. Today, Rolls-Royce produces only a few thousand cars each year. That number is tiny compared to manufacturers producing millions. And that's exactly how the company wants it. Because exclusivity cannot be mass-produced. The day a Rolls-Royce becomes ordinary, it stops being a Rolls-Royce. Perhaps that's why, after more than 120 years, the company continues defining luxury while so many other brands chase trends. It doesn't ask what customers want today. It asks what they'll still admire 20 years from now. And that may be the rarest form of luxury in an age where almost everything has become temporary. There are faster cars. There are louder cars. There are more powerful cars. Some automobiles cost more. Others use more advanced technology. Yet none of those things explain why Rolls-Royce has remained the ultimate symbol of automotive luxury for well over a century. Because Rolls-Royce was never really in the business of building cars. It was in the business of building reputation. Every stitch of leather, every polished piece of wood, every perfectly balanced door, every spirit of ecstasy standing proudly above the grille. They all communicate the same message. Someone cared enough to make this extraordinary. That philosophy began with Henry Royce, a man who believed perfection wasn't something you occasionally achieved. It was something you pursued every single day. More than a century later, that belief still defines the company. In a world increasingly dominated by automation, mass production, and disposable products, Rolls-Royce continues to prove that craftsmanship still matters, that patience still matters, that quality still matters. Perhaps that's why the world's wealthiest individuals continue choosing Rolls-Royce, not because they need another luxury car, but because they're buying something far more difficult to manufacture. A legacy, a statement, a piece of engineering history that quietly tells the world success doesn't have to shout. Luxury has changed dramatically over the past 100 years. Once it was measured by gold, diamonds, and extravagance. Today, the greatest luxury is often something much simpler: time, silence, privacy, attention to detail, the confidence that every element has been considered long before you arrive. And no company has understood that better than Rolls-Royce. Because while other manufacturers compete to build the fastest car, or the most technologically advanced, Rolls-Royce continues chasing something far more difficult: perfection. And perhaps that's why, after more than a century, it remains not just one of the world's greatest automobiles, but the ultimate expression of luxury itself.